Thank you. All right, everybody, welcome to our meeting. I'm calling this meeting to order at 7 o'clock. Can I please get a roll call?
Hello.
John Woodward.
Yeah.
Katie Vincent.
Here.
Mike Sherwood. Here. Shauna Manthorn.
Here.
Kim McCormick. Here. Kay Woodward. Melissa Kowalczyk.
Here.
And Paul McCain.
All right, if everybody could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I believe we've got quite a lineup for our student, staff, and family share. Is that correct?
We do. We've got two schools represented tonight. We're going to start with Danville. I'd like to introduce Principal Mr. Chris Snyder. He'll be here to preview what we're going to learn about.
Welcome.
Which one of the three of you are
I
principals?
was going to say. I'm the principal. I have two very capable first graders here alongside of me, and they're excited to share what they're going to share. So we decided tonight at Danville School we would highlight some of the new science curriculum that our students have been working on. It's called Mystery Science. It's something we're using in all of our grades, but we're going to highlight some of the first grade stuff. But to give you some understanding, Mystery Science, what it is, it's a lot of these things. We can go quickly through this, but it's a valuable resource for our teachers. It's a lot of hands-on activity for our students. That's what they love in particular. And it's aligned and provides some consistency for all of our students across grade levels. So here are just some Mystery Science shots in action from some of our first grade kiddos. You'll see that. You'll see some of our faces that are here tonight working on the studying light and sound. This is Mrs. Newman's class, and Mrs. Newman is here. She'll take over in just a minute, so you can see what they're doing. Is it transparent? Is it opaque? Is it translucent? Those are some really big science words for our first graders to consider, but they're doing it and doing it well. They're hearing about sound and vibration, things like that. So I think you'll have an opportunity to explore this. In second grade, Mrs. DeSantis's class, they're studying erosion and land changes and some of their experiments. You know, what did the water do to the sand? Those are some of the questions that they're answering as they explore this in hands-on ways. And then when they're, of course, we don't have pictures for all the grade levels, but in fifth grade, they're studying the properties of weight, properties and weight of salt in the water by creating a tiny ocean. So kudos to our staff for embracing this new curriculum. Also kudos to Mrs. Eden, our assistant principal, who is here in the crowd. She put together this PowerPoint presentation for us and gathered all these pictures from our staff. But I think here are our experts, and I'm going to hand the whole thing over to Mrs. Newman. She can take it from here. But we have some of, like I said, our very capable first graders, Eden and Abby, to help us.
Happy.
Thank you. Hello. Hi, I'm Jamie Newman. I teach first grade at the Danville School, and I brought two friends with me here tonight to help talk about the Mystery Science program we're doing in our classroom this year. Would you like to introduce yourselves again?
I'm Abby Cornell. I'm Aiden Belacqua.
We've got Abby and we've got Aiden, and I chose these two friends to come with us tonight because they are so super excited about science this year, right, Aiden? What do you say to me every morning when you come in?
Are we doing science? Are we doing science? Are we doing science?
Yeah, just like that. Is it time for science yet? So it's been really nice to see the level of excitement that this program has brought into our classroom. So tonight we thought that we would walk you through our first unit, which is all about sound and how sound is made. And the nice thing about this program is that each lesson starts with a question, kind of like a mystery that has to be solved, which gets the kids super excited. And our first lesson, the students had to listen to a mystery animal, and they had to try to guess what was the animal and how was it making it sound, right? And they didn't give us the answer for a while, maybe like 4 days, a week. And that got them more excited to try to figure it out. Before we could figure out who the mystery animal was, we had to go through a series of hands-on experiments in the classroom where the kids got to explore with sound and how sounds are made. So the first vocabulary word we learned was
Vibration.
Vibrations. And Aiden, can you tell us what vibrations means?
Vibrations means something going up and down really fast.
Up and down really fast or back and forth really fast. And we got to explore this concept of vibration in the classroom. And I'm going to let Abby explain what we did with this ruler.
So we put it on the table, hold it with our hand, and pluck it, and it went up and down and made vibration, and you could see it and hear it.
Do you want to demonstrate?
That's what she's thinking.
Oh.
Okay, so what was happening with the ruler, Abby?
It was vibrating.
It was vibrating. And Aiden, do you want to talk about what happens when we make the vibration stop?
Yes. Vibrations stop when there's no sound, no thing happening with the roller.
All right, do you want to demonstrate what that looks like?
Yeah.
And then stop it. Good. So what did we discover with this experiment, right? In order to have sound, we need vibrations. And without vibrations, we have no sounds. Good job. And then we did another experiment with instruments. We watched a video. They got to see lots of different kinds of instruments that were making sound by vibrating. And of course, we wanted to try this in the classroom. So I found a guitar, right? And Aiden, do you want to show what we discovered with the guitar strings?
Yes.
What happened?
We discovered that if you pluck the guitar strings, it vibrates and makes sounds.
You want to show 'em? One more time. Not only could we hear the vibrations, what could we
We could see them too.
see the strings vibrating too? Nice. And Abby, what happened when we stopped the strings from vibrating?
The sound stopped.
You want to show them that one? Nice job. So, like the ruler, we discovered that in order to have sound, we need vibrations, right? So, after a few experiments like this, they took us back to the mystery animal. And what was it?
A crocodile or an alligator.
An alligator. And can you explain the connection between the ruler and the guitar and the alligator?
It was all vibrating. And they all made sound.
When the alligator was making his sound, what was happening to his body?
It was vibrating.
It was vibrating, right? His neck, his body, even
The water around.
the water around him was vibrating. So we actually have one more experiment to show you tonight. I completely forgot all about it, but they asked to bring it to you tonight. So if it's okay, we were
Absolutely.
hoping they could hand out some materials to all of you.
Sure,
go
go
for
for
it.
it.
Okay. Want to hand these out, Aiden?
I'm not ready for this.
Give Jack some space.
Hey, the
Go on
ruler
to
thing
that
brought
part.
back some memories.
That was my first
Leave that
engagement.
note alone.
Spent a lot of time in the closet.
Thank you, Abby.
The guitar demonstration sounded a lot like the music Mr. Krieger plays at his office.
Take that one and that one.
The beauty that Bill Lutz from my office.
Go start on that side, bud.
Thank you, sir.
Come on.
I love to learn new things.
I got first grade in my soul.
You, the cat's cradle and like the ladder. Oh, yeah. Oh, see? We're not the only ones. We're not the only ones. Not in so long.
Hey class, you need the focus?
Everybody have one? Good. Okay, Abby, tell them, what do they have? How do we make it? What do we do with it?
It's a head hub and take a string as long as your arm, tie it in a knot, and you can put it on your head and above your ears and pluck it.
Oh.
Oh my! And what do you hear?
vibration.
Vibrations, right? Aiden, what else can we do with our string?
You can hold it tight or hold it loose.
Try holding it tight and then loosening it.
Everyone put their cameras away.
Pluck it up high, pluck it by your ear. Right? Nice work. You can keep these.
Oh,
Take them to Thanksgiving dinner with you. So to sum it all up, we've really been enjoying the science in our class this year, and it's my first time using the mystery science program, but I really like the way that they're bringing it into the classroom with hands-on experiments in a very age-appropriate way. And Aiden, Abby, do you have anything else you want to say about science this year?
It's really good and I like the guitar. I really liked finding out the animals.
The mystery element.
Mom.
Good job.
Thank you guys so much for coming, and just to see first graders putting those big concepts together, like that's a big deal, and they were able to articulate it so well. So thank you so much. Thank you to your staff. Did anybody want to say anything or ask a question? Yeah, Kim.
Abigail and Aiden, thank you for bringing the world's best teacher to our school board meeting tonight, because that was and thank you for teaching us. We are all grown-ups and we just learned all new stuff, and thank you very much for teaching us some new things tonight. That was very brave and we're very proud of you. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Christmas gift. This is really for my life.
Vestibular input and vibration.
For neuromuscular reeducation facilitation. Okay, great. And then we can.
That's what immediately we started doing. We were like, okay, do we remember?
I wasn't going to release this for this.
All right, we're gonna let them clear out, and then we've got one more family share.
There's nothing to say. It's a full moon and Mercury retrograde starts Monday.
All right, who else do we have, sir?
So when we first brought the student, staff, and family share to the board, wanted to remind everybody that it was really to showcase the stories and voices of those people in our schools that are either doing the work or receiving the work, or families at home that are kind of in between and observing both of those things. So we're going to do a little piece of the developmental ladder. We've had elementary students in front of us to begin. We're going to bring some middle school students, and if you look out in the audience, there's also some people here to support them as well. I'm going to introduce Mitch Mensis. He's going to introduce the families. We're going to have 4 to 5 speakers. Then we're really hoping for an open conversation and engagement with the board about these experiences this evening. Mr. Mensis, welcome.
Stole some of my thunder there with some of those lines. Also an incredible tough follow after the guitar
I don't know if you're gonna be able to beat that.
I do appreciate you trying to bring the class back together again. We were getting a little unruly. My job is super easy tonight. I just get to introduce an amazing family in our school community. And I was thinking about a way to talk about how great they were. I could go over different accolades and how long I've known them, but the easiest way is to look around the crowd. And this is a very full room tonight because we have a lot of people here just to support them, including Mr. McCarthy, who's right behind me, is the 7th grade AP. Dr. Preble right behind me, who's been helping our middle school with some things you'll be hearing about. None of us have to be here. None of us. We all want to be here. So that's all I got to say. You guys, you get the floor. Welcome to the Lombard family.
You guys sit.
We got five speakers, so they have a lineup.
We have an order.
I'll sit in the middle.
Grab chairs.
Let me see this.
More down there. One more for that over there.
Another chair.
Mom, come over here.
Oh,
And we put them right on the other side to get the whole family. The whole crew.
all right.
So,
Thank you for bearing with our logistics. Appreciate it. Excited to hear it.
wait till Jim says. So I'll just say, I'm already feeling teary-eyed, so I'm sorry if I'm not able to be fully. So thank you so much to Justin Krieger in this board for giving us the opportunity to speak, turning pain into purpose. Let me introduce our family. We're the Lombards, and we created our family through adoption and have been raising our children since day one. Lizzie, our senior, she is Caucasian and is a senior in high school, and the twins are half African American and half Costa Rican, but they identify as Black, as that is how the world sees them. When we adopted children of color, we were concerned about how our predominantly white community and school system would embrace our children. I remember calling Sandown North to check on how many children of different races were there and was told there were a few and that they were well received. And I have to say that for the most part, this has been a true statement for us as well. But unfortunately, this is not all of the story. And tonight, losing my place. And today we are here to share some of the painful things our family has endured in response to the twins' race. We are not here to simply complain or to air out our grievances because we don't find that to be helpful in any way. We have raised our children with the mindset and teachings of MLK, and in that spirit, we have often come to solutions with the children that have had issues that they have had issues with that are life-giving and healing, where perpetrators become partners. Many of those kids who said things over the years are now part of the solution and will likely never engage in that way again. There have been heroes in these stories, and some of those heroes are teachers in this district. But we need more heroes, and we need more advocates, and we need more champions. Our hope is by illuminating the problem, there will be funding and resources attributed to increasing equity, empathy, education, and engagement. So educators are empowered to manage these situations, bringing solution and change. Okay,
Take your time.
I didn't expect to feel this way. Ignoring the issues doesn't work. Being colorblind doesn't work. Punishment alone doesn't work. In order to produce real change, we have to change hearts and mentality. More programs related to understanding one another and empathy are in order, so all kids who are vulnerable will be less at risk. There are organizations like the King Center that have resources to help towards this end. In case you haven't noticed, MLK is pretty much my hero. Some local SAUs have programs that begin in kindergarten and go through 12th grade and are specifically geared towards this initiative and are systematically instituted. I implore you to make changes. I've encouraged my children to speak up because they can and they will. We need to speak for those who don't feel comfortable speaking and for those who will come after them in elementary school and middle school. We worry about their future in high school and hope that our speaking up will ensure a more positive future. We are told that our children are very resilient, and that they are. Much more so than I am right now. But resiliency is not the same as unbreakable. Even an elastic can get stretched too far, and overstretched elastics don't go back to their original shape. And that is sad. No names will be given of students or faculty because this is not a people problem, but rather a system-wide problem. It needs a system-wide solution. Let me introduce my son, Henry, who began this whole thing because in the spring, he had a really tough day and he had had just about enough. But instead of acting out and making bad choices in his pain, he came home and he wrote a speech to the school board. Today, he gets to read it. I told him MLK would sure be proud of him, and so are we. So this is Henry. Our wonderful son, who's now 13, but he was 12 when he wrote this speech. So,
Good morning, school board leaders, adults, friends, and everyone who can make it here today. Today, we're discussing the perspective of being a 12-year-old, 6th grade black male by Henry Lombard, March 28th, 2024. Today is the first time I started to journal on my computer to myself. I've been wanting to do this for a long time so I can show my feelings on school topics and check my mental health without needing to feel closed in or judged. So I decided to start today. Without further ado, let's get started. We need to get on the topic of the N-word and or racism in general. When I went to school one day, I thought it was just going to be a normal day with my friends. But on that day, it wasn't. When I walked in the lunchroom, I heard a rumor that was shocking. It was anything that I wanted to hear in a school building in which kids are supposed to feel welcomed and safe. But that is the exact opposite of what I felt that day. I heard that one of my friends has said the N-word. This made me feel like throwing up. Throughout the years at school, I've had to deal with so many racist remarks on my skin color. It's was really hard to have a close friend get a black marker and put it up to my arm just to make a joke. It's so erratic and irrational that even when some light-skinned people say the N-word and a black person or person of color tries to stand up to the person of lighter skin, they say stuff like, it's just a word, or it's not a big deal. And what I'm saying is, yes, this is a big deal. It's a big deal because it applies to me and my twin sister, Toria. And whenever this happened, I've watched my sister not knowing what's going on with the friendship or the lost friendship from that one person saying that one word. Their reaction to when a person of color tries to stand up for what's right is, it's just a word, or it's not a big deal. Not a big deal. It's a big deal that Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King had to fight for a seat on the bus, or even that there was a need to abolish slavery and segregation. It's a big deal that they just wanted to live in peace, where people of color and lighter skinned people can be in the same school and live normal lives. This is something that they would not want to happen to any race. It's the things that people take so lightly about racism that bothers me so much. And I especially hate it when a person of lighter skin says stuff like the N-word is just a word, for they don't know how the word affects people of color. And this message is not saying that all white people are bad. I'm just saying that there needs to be a change in the way our school handles racism. For a wise man once said, men shall not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Martin Luther King, Jr.
Thank you, Hunter.
thank you. Mrs. Victoria.
7 years ago, a free-loving child, not knowing what the world would tell for her. She sits in her classroom, excited for the day. She sits and waits till the day passes. She sits and talks to her friend that will be leaving before the new school year begins. She talks to her with compassion and kindness. She listens to her describe the new environment. Curious, with wide eyes, she says, "Wow, I wish I could go there." Her friends reply, nothing short, only, "You can't. Black people can't go there." She didn't understand, being her 6-year-old self. So she goes home and tells her mom and brother. That was her first realization that she was different. 2 years later, that same free will young girl, shooken up and more on the edge, is sitting on the bus with her brother and friend in reach. She sat and waits till she gets home. She looks to her left, and a boy is yelling at her brother. She starts listening, and something she's never heard came out of this boy's mouth. "Your skin's like poop. I hope you die. I'm gonna shoot you until you're dead." She looks at her friend, only to realize that same friend was the boy's sister. She didn't know what to do. Should she intervene or stay quiet? Now take that, and imagine being in the life of a 2nd grader. 4 years later, that same girl is sitting in a new desk, in a new chair, in a new school. She just had graduated 5th grade and was excited for the year ahead. She walks into her classroom, ready for the day, just as she did in 1st grade. She walks into her music class, and as she's getting water, a young boy, immature and careless, walks up to her and says, "You can't drink there. It's only for white people." She looks up, and it's that same boy who is quiet in class and never says a word. The same boy that you would see with 1, maybe 2 friends walking down the hall. She looks for others, but no one's there. She walks into class with wide eyes and a fake smile and says nothing. Months later, she's at a school-sponsored event and is standing in line for food after a sports event. She's excited to share a meal with her team members. A boy, 2, maybe 1 grade above her, looks at her and says to her friend, "Can you say the N-word?" She looks at her friend with question. Why would he ask her to say that? Why would he do it to her friend? And why right there? The boy looks at her and says, "Oh, I'm sorry." She says, "Turn around." He looks at her, then looks at her hair and says, "Your hair's frizzy." Her being as mad as can be, replies, "Turn around." He turns. She looks at her friend, and with no hesitation, her friend gets her food and brings her to a table. So there she sits, waiting for it all to be over. Forward a year, this girl just had finished 6th grade and was already 2 months into the school year. When she walked into the school, she's at a lunch table, eating with the people she trusts most. She sits, and she hears the M-word as loud as possible. No one did anything. Days later, she's waiting for class once again. The teacher has her pass out papers when she approaches someone that she calls a friend and talks to. He says, "Give me a paper, you stupid slave." She tells him that's not funny. He sits up and says, "I thought it was funny." She tries to tell the teacher, but she was dismissed. She sits down. That girl was B.
And this is our senior Lizzie.
I'm going
Oh, I'm
next.
sorry.
I'm next.
She's
last.
My husband's next. Yes.
Good evening. My name is Jim Lombard. Words are so important. The words we speak can make someone mad or make someone sad or even happy. As a family, we know how important the words we say are. Throughout our time here at Timberlane, we have lived through multiple incidents of racism. Words, just words from kids, maybe trying to fit in or get a rise out of our kids. Words such as, "Henry, I can't play with you because I don't trust brown people." Or being called a thief and accused of stealing a cell phone when he was 2 to 3 years old. And in 2nd grade, being called a vandal when he removed a patch from a bus seat that was barely hanging on. Being harassed for a pass to say the N-word. And Henry was told that a girl would have her dad beat him up and that she wishes he would shoot himself in the mouth. He was told on another occasion, "Shut up, you stupid monkey." I'm proud of my kids that when these words are hurled at them, they haven't struck back physically or verbally. They have found advocates at the schools they have attended in Timberlane. They have found heroes who have stood up and said, "That's not right." We are grateful for those heroes, whether they be students, teachers, or principals. And a special thanks to Dr. Preble for his wonderful work with our students to enhance a sense of empathy in all of our children. None of this today is intended to discount the tireless work he has done. In the play Seussical, Horton the elephant says, "A person's a person, no matter how small." And later he says, "One small voice in the universe." We want to make sure that those small voices who perhaps are being singled out and bullied will find advocates within Timberlane. Otherwise, their voices get smaller and smaller and could go unheard. We can't allow this to happen. If enough small voices shout out, we will be heard. Dr. King said, "Who will let their lives be a voice for these voiceless people and this silent earth?" Maybe one day, if we listen carefully, as Dr. King said, we will hear a voice calling to us to be a voice of healing, a voice of change, a voice that casts a new vision of a sacred dream. And now this is my daughter, Lizzie.
Hello, Timberlane School Board. My name is Lizzie Lombard, and I'm a senior in high school. I'm the secretary of the senior class, chorus president, players leader, Life of an Owl executive member, Rho Kappa Honor Society treasurer, but most importantly, sister to Henry and Victoria. These roles have shaped my perspective and fueled my commitment to addressing the pressing issues of discrimination and injustice in our community. To address this issue, I believe we must take 3 critical steps: education, action, and prevention. Students are not educated enough on discrimination and why it is wrong. A one-time school assembly featuring BMX bikers who tell students to stop bullying does not solve the deeper issue. We need a long-term, sustained, educational approach to address the problems of bullying and its effects. This includes the problems of systemic racism. Students learn from their environments, and that is how ideas are passed down generationally. In order to break that cycle, we should implement more educational programs for students of all ages. This can be through empathy-building activities, discussing historical events, and discussions around the impacts of discrimination. we must look for action to be taken. Exeter School District, SAU 16, has implemented the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Justice, or the DEIJ program. They have taken steps to educate and address injustice, and I believe we can do that too. Their website states, quote, "Collectively, we aim to ensure that our school system is an enterprise whose growth is undeterred by bias or discrimination, where individuals of all backgrounds and experiences are welcomed, and where personal narratives are heard, included, and valued. Part of our educational mission is to awaken students' awareness of their power and privilege so that they may view the world through a lens of equity and help eliminate unjust systems and practices. Our vision is that all students will grow with confidence, empathy, and understanding of what is right so they may advocate for these ideals in their world. If we adopt a similar system, our schools can build a more inclusive and supportive environment that will benefit students for years to come. There also needs to be prevention. If we educate beginning at an early age, we are taking a step further on preventing issues like this from happening. One of the most effective ways to foster understanding is through literature. Incorporating books that address racism, inequality, and injustice into the curriculum would deepen students' understandings and prepare them to engage with these issues thoughtfully. While classes might have some form of the curriculum put in place, it is not strong enough, and it needs to be more direct, going beyond the classroom. If this type of education happens as early as possible, there will be fewer issues later on as students get older. I was shocked last year in my AP English Language and Composition class when there were students who did not know what a Confederate soldier was. An AP student who is a junior in high school should arguably know what a Confederate is. I then went and asked students of all grades in high school what they felt their understanding of the Civil War was, and many said they had learned about it a little in 8th grade and junior year of high school, but they overall had a limited understanding of our history. In order to move forward, we need to understand our past. Preventing acts of discrimination includes education, as well as consequences for those who say hurtful things. There is a need for stronger disciplinary action taken that goes beyond a suspension and identifies the problem and leads to a solution. It is important for students to learn that their actions have consequences, and those can be both positive and negative. As a sister, it breaks my heart to hear about the hurtful things my siblings experience at school. Discrimination, whether born from ignorance or malice, has no place in our community. No student should feel unsafe, unvalued, or unloved, and that includes my siblings. It's time for a change, and it's long overdue. Together, we can create a school environment where every student feels safe, valued, and loved. Let's take action now to make a difference for the future. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming and speaking. That takes a lot to be able to come up and speak and everything. I'm sorry that your family has had to go through that, but you guys have definitely raised some really good kids to not lash out in anger, but to use their words. Does anybody want to say anything or ask any questions? Yeah, Bree and then Shauna.
I just have a question because I know a little while back we had the, what is it called, the culture CSS, is that what it is?
Culture and climate?
Culture and climate, and I'm wondering if you're a part of that at all at the high school?
I am not a part of it. I do a lot. And I would totally be interested in doing that, but I also, I find different ways to advocate, but I do have a lot of friends who are involved. Luke Swanee, right there, he is a member of the Climate and Culture Committee, so, and he is here to support Henry and Victoria.
And Henry and Victoria, have you guys considered maybe being a part of that at the middle school level if it gets rolled out there?
That's
or
House of
being...
Reps.
Oh, I'm part of that.
Yeah.
At the middle school, we call it the House of Reps.
Okay, and maybe continuing on at the high school level.
Oh, for sure. I will be continuing that on as long as I can.
And your student representative on the board also sits on the high school culture and climate committee as well.
Yes, I look forward if you come up. It's amazing. I mean, it's only my second meeting, but I had the opportunity to meet with Mr. Preppel, so I would really encourage
Shauna.
Thank you for being here. I know you personally. My family's lives are exponentially better because of all of you. Lizzie, thanks for looking out for Keegan at the high school. I appreciate you. Tori and Henry, thank you for looking out for Cole. And thank you for your friendship and your bravery and being here and sharing your experiences with us. We have a lot to learn from you. Thank you for partnering with us. And I love you.
Mark and then Dawn.
I feel the need to say something, though anything I say will be inadequate. The courage that mom and dad have and the courage that you have adopted for yourselves and advocating for yourselves, I'm not quite certain how to approach that other than to acknowledge that I see you.
Don?
You have a beautiful family. You guys obviously love each other, care for each other. And what you did today, I hope you go home and you're proud of yourselves for. I'm proud that, this can happen.
Yeah.
To maybe wake some people up to the things that we don't want to admit are going on right under our noses. It's a tough life without any of that. It must be very hard to have gone through all you have. But tonight, you've kind of addressed it in a very, very significant way. And like everybody here, it's an emotional thing to see, feel, and hear. So thank you.
Melissa?
I just want to say I don't know most of you. I do know Lizzie, and I know how much tenacity and strength she has. And I know that comes from all of you guys. So I am assuming that you all have that. I can see that from your presentation tonight. I'm hoping that us as a board that we can try to initiate some of these changes to give the tools of not just the middle school, but all the schools. It needs to start at the elementary school level too. It's coming, and it's not just the school. Unfortunately, it's the community, but I'm hoping that if we can initiate stuff in the school, that will help bleed it into the community. So I'm really looking forward to initiating some of these, really. Yeah. You guys did a great job presenting everything.
Thank you guys again for coming, and it takes a lot of courage to get up here and speak, and you guys have done a really good job of raising these three children. Grow up to be great adults. This board is here for you all, so.
Thank you.
Who else wanted? Bree?
Quick again, one of MLK's favorite quotes of mine, paraphrasing, is that darkness does not get rid of darkness, light does that.
That's right.
Just like hate does not get rid of hate, love does that. So I think maybe if we can bring a little more love into this community, that would be excellent.
So let's take a look at people doing that right now, right? So if you're in the audience and you're a middle school student and you're here to support the people who were speaking, could you just stand up and let us recognize who you are? And then if you can continue to stand, I just have a quick comment. There's a lot of work the adults need to do here. We are not going to be able to do it by ourselves. We are going to need to partner with people like you who are going to champion this work. So we are depending upon you to do exactly what you did tonight, to do it tomorrow, and to do it the day after that inside of your schools and in your local communities. Really appreciate the three of you. Is that what I see?
Oh, there's more high schoolers too.
More high school. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I just totally separated. Oh, there you go. All right. I would just carbon copy for the high school kids what I said.
Ditto. All right. Thank you guys so much. Have a good evening. Thank you. We'll give everybody a few minutes to clear out, and then were you wanting to speak, sir?
I would just appreciate 1 minute.
Please. Yep.
Thank these students for what they've done tonight. It's pretty hard to ignore the voices of these students when they tell us what their lives are like every day. And so now you've raised the awareness of this room, I think, about this problem, and that is a beautiful thing, and it's the first step. These administrators have been working for a while on this issue, and I want to applaud the people in your district they've been working on this since, I was in this boardroom almost 2 years ago, I think.
Yeah, you are.
And there's been a lot going on. At some point, I would really love you to bring back all of the things that the middle school and the high school team are doing and show that the students are moving. I'm going to ask them to challenge you to move, especially over the next 6 months. This is going to be a rough ride. And I just want you to pledge not to just not be racist, but to be an advocate for these kids, to take it on yourselves to do what you can do, because there's a lot we can do together. The partnership that you just saw tonight is alive and well in this district. We need the board to really be aware and understand what's happening, and we need them to be willing to step up and go, what's that grant from the Martin Luther King Foundation that we can get funding to do more work on this? Let's take really concrete steps together. So sorry, I couldn't let it go without making the ask. So we're making the ask to step up with you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Folks.
Thank you, guys. Okay, we're gonna take a 5-minute recess and we'll be back at 7:46. All right, everybody, thank you. We are back from our recess and we are gonna hear.
They call me.
Hey, we're starting this meeting. Next is student rep. Go ahead.
Alrighty, so starting out strong with the high school for updates. So it's kind of a little bit of a sports hiatus because we're kind of in between seasons, but many have started their preseason open gyms and practices like esports, wrestling, gymnastic, and swimming. And then I know esports kind of cool, added that this year. And then others will kick off by December 2nd. Our Town was a huge hit, the play, so shout out to all the amazing cast members and directors who helped make the play the success that it was. The Milkmen have their comedy and improv show tomorrow night in the Pack Recital Hall, taking on the theme of the 7th Annual Corpsing Cup, which is actually where Team Horgan and Team Fitz, two fitness teachers at Timberlane, battle it out in an improv to see who's the best, which is kind of cool. It's an annual thing. All proceeds go to the benefit the Math Honor Society and the Bill Burke Memorial Award, which will be awarded to an improv senior in May from the Milkmen. The Rho Kappa Honor Society hosted their annual Veterans Day breakfast on the 12th. So we had a large number attend the breakfast. It was very awesome to see their memorabilia, their photos, just kind of talk to them, interact. It was really great to have that experience. And then the Timberlane Hockey also visited the Atkinson Fire Department when they had their Veterans Day breakfast as well. So they really helped put it on and make it a success. And then Duncan visited the high school, which is a nice surprise, giving out free $5 gift cards to each student and staff. And we got a sample of a dragon fruit refresher, which was pretty cool. And the organization was sponsored by High School Nation, so they were able to set up a date with the business, Duncan, and kind of facilitate that between our schools. Earlier in the month, Timberlane's Life of an Owl Leadership Program hosted the annual Youth Leadership Summit, where approximately 60 students from around the state could take a deeper dive at Timberlane about what it truly means to be a leader and how decision-making really impacts both your physical and mental health. And then Millie's Meals tickets are now available until December 11th for the raffle at the high school. It's really cool because we're able to sponsor a lot of events. I know the Friday before vacation, we have like 3 options we can choose from. We can go to a Milkman show. We can watch a student versus staff or student and staff faculty basketball against students. And then some people can go into the caf to do crafts and games. So it's a cool variety. Atkinson Academy, they have been instituting their fire prevention assemblies recently. And then the Atkinson Academy Lip Sync was held last Friday evening at the PAC as well. So the PTA showed their support the PTA put it on and kids were able to show support for their classmates at the event. So special thanks to the Night Owls who put it on and Mrs. Goddard for making this event happen. The book fair is also at Atkinson and is wrapping up tomorrow. So it started on the 18th. Kids could go get scholastic books at the library, which was pretty neat. And then the student council food drive also wrapped up at Atkinson as well. Moving on to Danville, the student council planned a Kindness Spirit Week in recognition of National Kindness Day, which was on November 13th. And it consisted of a whole school assembly Friday afternoon, where each grade level wore different colors, and one student from each grade level was nominated by a staff member to receive an award for showing kindness this fall. The school also collected 435 boxes of cereal to donate to the veterans as well, which was really impressive. And then moving on to Sandown North. Students were recognized once again at the all-school meeting as those in the classroom who were used as examples for showing kindness. And they also celebrated their Kindness Week with Spirit Days throughout the week. And 5th graders will be going on a field trip this Friday to the Space Center, which is pretty neat. And then at TLC, Sandown Central, students recognized the veterans in Sandown through coloring patriotic pictures. And the PTA was generous enough to deliver them to all the veterans in the town. At the middle school, the student athletes had a successful fall sports season. Many of the teams made it pretty far in playoffs and represented the school very, very well. Winter sports are now underway there. We had a great participation in the annual cookie drive, also our fundraiser at the middle school. So thank you to all who participated and supported the event to make it happen for the students. All proceeds will go to further supporting student families and upcoming activities as well. There are over 15 clubs at the middle school, which people have been taking part in, and they happen on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And so the late bus is able to take them home. So it's really allowing the students to get involved. And then TRMS also celebrated World Diabetes Day last week, where students and staff wore blue and raised $852 that was donated to the Jocelyn Diabetes Center. And staff were also able to participate in the 1 mile walk after school to show their support. And that is the updates that I have for you today.
Very nice. Thank you so much. A lot of good stuff going on in the district. Do we have any delegates and individuals that are wishing to speak? Could I get a motion to move the 30 minutes of delegates and individuals to the end of the meeting?
So
Moved by Shauna. Do I have a second?
yes.
Second by Bree. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed and abstained. All right, we've got some minutes. We got a regular business public meeting, and then we do have a couple of one thing of non-public.
I make a motion to approve the minutes from November 7th.
Motion by Bree, was that you?
Yes.
I'll second. Seconded by Kim. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed and abstained. So 801. And then you have the non-public meeting minutes in your possession.
Make a motion to approve the non-public meeting minutes from November 7th, 2024.
Got a motion by Shauna. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mark. He was silent with his hand raised.
Oh, sorry.
Any discussion on these meeting minutes? All those in favor? Opposed and abstained. 801 again. If you could pass those back, please. All right. First business is the FY26 default budget. I believe Mr. Krieger and is Maria going to be up here as well?
We are gonna do a little teaching.
Okay. That's the theme.
That is the theme,
I
right?
feel like we're back in school.
Maria's and I hope tonight is to do some education around the default budget. There's gonna be three kind of big parts here. The first is we're gonna look at the actual legal definition, the RSA. And then I'm hoping to show you what I think is a pretty simple math problem that helps us wrap our heads around the framework of a default. Part two is Maria's gonna begin talking about how that framework maybe fits into more specific things with here in Timberlane in terms of some specific examples as we're working through calculating the default budget. And then we're gonna end with some historical information to share with you around where those budgets have been over the last decade and what the voter turnout has been at each of those elections. So I would draw your attention to RSA 40:13-9B. I'm gonna read this to you because this is what we're gonna be doing, and I'll concentrate on some of the highlighted words there, and then we'll get to a more visual graphic. Default budget, as used in this subdivision, means the amount of the same appropriations as contained in the operating budget authorized for the previous year, reduced and increased, as the case may be, by debt service, contracts, and other obligations previously incurred or mandated by law, and reduced by one-time expenditures contained in the operating budget, and by salaries and benefits of positions that have been eliminated in the proposed budget. So that is the language around how to calculate a default budget. There's some middle language there that defines two key terms that I'm sharing with you, and again, verbatim from the RSA. First, one-time expenditures shall be appropriations not likely to recur in the succeeding budget. And eliminated positions shall not include vacant positions under recruitment or positions redefined in the proposed operating budget as determined by the governing body. The governing body is you, the school board. Lastly, the RSA closes here. In calculating the default budget amount, the governing body shall follow the statutory formula, which may result in a higher or lower amount than the proposed operating budget. So that is the law, that's the framework, that's what we're using here in terms of moving forward. In terms of seeing this language, maybe in something as a math problem. Dean, how do I go to the next? Is this what it is? Yeah. Okay. All right. So if you think about setting up a simple addition or subtraction problem, based on the RSA language, this is what the math problem looks like. You start with the fiscal year 24 voted budget. You're going to add and or subtract three key components: debt service, existing contracts, and future obligations. You are then going to subtract the one-time expenditures from fiscal year 24. You are then going to subtract eliminated positions from the fiscal 25 proposed budget. That will equal the fiscal 25 default budget. That there is the calculation. Maria is gonna talk through this same calculation, but with some specifics here for Timberlane.
So, for debt services, the two things that are allowed to, take under debt services are any bonds or any leases that the that the constituents vote for. The contracts, that are, some of the contracts that are allowed are the collective bargaining agreements for any of the unions, any academic or maintenance contracts that are previously agreed upon. For example, software contracts, like any of our systems, when we have a multi-year contract, each of those years we are allowed to include them because we already have a contractual agreement with that company. Another good example of that is equipment. So for example, our printers and copiers in the district. We have a 5-year agreement with them. If the agreement increases every year, that increase we are allowed to do it because it's a contractual agreement that has been incorporated, so we have the obligation. Other obligations that are allowed are things that are mandated by law. So for example, special education. We are required to provide the services to the special education children. So we have the allowance to put those in because it's a requirement. Transportation, we are obligated to transport our children. So that is another expense that it is allowed into the default budget. Contracted services, either for special education or for regular education. Any contracted services that give us the opportunity to serve the students is allowed into the default budget. Then the reductions are, like Justin said, a one-time expenditures that are not, most likely not recurring in the next year. Some examples of that are the purchase of a vehicle. So if in 2024 we purchase a vehicle, then on the default budget we remove that because that's most likely not the case again. For example, a new phone system. So last year we changed our phone system because it was old and obsolete. So that was a 1-year expense. This year it won't be in the budget. It won't be in the default budget. An intercom system, another example. The Wi-Fi firewalls that will implement. They are in the budget for that year. They cannot go into the default budget for the following year. So those are the examples of the ins and outs that are allowable. Some people, if you don't know, when is the default budget adopted? So the default budget, if the proposed operating budget does not pass, and if the governing body does not choose to call for a special meeting to consider a revised operating budget, then the default budget is deemed to have been adopted. So when the operating budget, the proposed budget doesn't pass, and the school board doesn't decide to call a special meeting, then we are on default budget. One thing that I try to remind people is, keep in mind this is a formula. It's just a mathematic formula. It can the result can be higher or it can be lower than the proposed budget, depending on the year, depending on the circumstances, depending on the contracts that we have, depending on the prior year expenses that are one time. It just fluctuates. It can be in or out. To illustrate that, I included the 15-year history of Timberlane in the chart that you have. So the first chart includes all the towns together, for yes and no, and what budget passed.
Do we have that chart?
It should be in the package.
Is it not in your electronic package in front of you?
No.
No,
I
it's
was
not.
looking around for it.
Okay. We'll be sure that it gets to you right after this meeting.
Of course.
But I think what we could do is Maria can summarize it for you, so when you're
That's
looking at
fine.
it, you kind of understand what you're seeing.
So in the last 15 years, we have passed 13 proposed budgets, and we have ended up with equal budget 2 years. Here it has a number of votes, yes votes and no votes, so you can see the percentages as well for each of the years. And then I took all those years and broke them down by town. So you can see each of the towns, what passed, what didn't pass in each of the towns. And then I have everything collectively, who voted, what for each of the towns, when they voted yes, when they voted no, and then as a percent of the town population. So how many residents are in Danville, who voted yes, who voted no, and what percentage of each of those is. So it's a really breakdown into the history of the budget in our district.
Question, in the last 15 years, how many times was the default budget higher than the proposed budget? Twice.
We ended up with default 2 times.
No.
Oh.
When was the default budget higher than the proposed budget?
It is in here, so let me just see if I can see it quick.
Last decade is about 50-50.
So this one.
I know, we have the data, I wanna know.
2, 3, 4, 5.
Maria's doing
6.
that. The nice thing about that data stuff is you can look as macro or as micro as you want. And it also lists the proposed versus the default, and there's a variance column there. So you can, year to year, you can track how close those two things are or how far apart they are.
8. So in 15 years, 8 times the
times.
default budget was higher than the proposed operating budget. So it's not some thing that just happens or whatever, that's a very common occurrence.
Yes.
Okay, Jack.
I think sometimes there's, even with the town budgets, there's this misunderstanding that the default should always be lower and
Right.
much lower than the existing budget, where you may have some one-time expenditures in one year in the existing budget that no longer exist the following year, which will drive that below the default. And it is not, the word default is a little misleading. It's here's how we ran the district last year, and those really two don't correspond with each other. And like you said, Maria, you're bound by law, by that formula. There's no discretion like there is in the regular budget.
Correct.
And just for everyone's edification, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the regular budget is about 70% obligations and existing contracts. There's only about 30% of that that's discretionary. Maybe I'm off a percent or two, but is that
It depends
kinda
on,
correct?
it depends
year?
on the year, yeah. Obviously, our personnel is 75% of our budget, and we have 7 unions, so we have 7 collective bargaining agreements, so yes.
So there are are those voices out there saying, oh my God, the default budget is higher. They're trying to, no, it's not how it works.
And one of the things you'd
More
like to
than half
do,
of the time.
again, defer to the legal RSA language. The last part of the language clearly says it may result in a higher or lower amount than the proposed operating budget. That's in the statute.
Right.
Yep. And I have a feeling this year our default budget is more than likely gonna be higher than our operating budget, because our operating budget, we are definitely trying to make better fiscal choices, and it's gonna be cut.
And and those selections that we're trying to put this year are not necessarily things that we remove from the default budget by law, so.
Alyssa?
Just piggybacking on what Katie just said, are we close enough to know whether the default budget is gonna be higher than our budget? Are we
Yeah,
at
we
that
will-
point? Is that what it's looking
We
like?
will definitely bring it over. We were actually just finished last night, special education, which is a huge, one of the largest budgets in the district. So that was finished last night, and transportation, so those were the last 2. So now I have all the numbers that I need to put together, the default budgets.
We're getting there.
Okay, just curious.
But
That's a
that's
teaser.
That's
Yeah.
what we anticipate.
Okay.
Can you remind us when that presentation is gonna be between VetCom and?
Yes.
The budget committee with the joint meeting with the school board.
December 16th.
December
16th.
16th. At
Kelly
the-
Salovich is in my head telling me, don't say it's December 10th. December 16th.
And it's gonna be at the high school cafeteria, is that correct?
I believe we're gonna be in the high school cafeteria.
Because there's a
Yes.
conflict at the PAC,
Yes.
correct? Any other questions for Justin and Maria so far for what they've talked about?
All right, thank you for that time.
Oh, great.
can we also look at that historical document? And can we compare from year to year between the budgets that were voted in, what percentage increase there was?
Yes, that's in there.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Yes, yeah.
What was it?
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Yes, we're good, Maria.
Sorry.
Thank you guys for getting that data for us. All right. Does anybody else, before we move on, does anybody else have any other questions about the default budget? Again, it's not done yet, but. Okay. Next, we have a student overnight travel to Montreal. Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
So I come to you tonight requesting your permission to bring or it's not me bringing the students to Montreal, but students in grades 6 through 12 in the French program at those schools going to Montreal for a weekend to immerse themselves in some French culture and some French speaking and everything that Montreal, maybe not everything that Montreal has to offer, things that Montreal has to offer.
Great.
So in your packets, I believe you have the executive summary about it.
Clarification, did you say 6th through 12 or 8th through 12?
6 through 12.
Because in this document it says
It says
8th.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, I apologize. 8th through 12th. Sorry.
This is something that happens every year, correct?
This has happened in the past, yes.
It's a reoccurring trip.
Schedule that around the Grand Prix.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the overnight trip to Montreal. And then more than that in there.
I'll second that.
Hold tight. Motion to approve the request for student overnight travel to
That's-
Montreal from May 17th through the 19th of 2025.
I said that.
That's the motion that Kim said and Jackie seconded.
I didn't.
Je fais un maman.
Any other questions,
I
discussions?
just have a quick
Yep, go ahead,
question.
Alyssa.
I know you guys are gonna plan a fundraise to pick up some of the costs. What kind of fundraising do you guys typically do for this?
So
Just curious.
a lot of it is actually just, selling food, bake sales, things like that. I believe that was pretty successful last year with the 8th graders who fundraised last year did that. I don't know if they have anything else than that planned. But I know that in years past, they have used that as a pretty good fundraiser.
Make sure they do homemade croissants because they're very challenging and because they're delicious.
Abigail?
I know I'm a French student. I didn't get to go on this trip, or not didn't get to go, but last year I know a lot of the kids had a lot of fun on it. I do believe they had a few informational meetings. I don't know what exactly they're planning on fundraising with, but I know Bake Sale, I know 8th grade did that last year. So I know they've had meetings and they've been discussing about it in class, but I think they're planning more meetings to discuss like if they're doing Bake Sale or like how they're gonna get the money. But I know a lot of people loved it last year. They talked about how it was like to immerse themselves in the French culture. It was really beneficial and they came back with a lot of great things, including our teacher, so.
Thank you for that. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor? Opposed and abstained? Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, touchscreen Chromebook RFP recommendations. Come on down, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening, how are you?
I'm well, how are you?
We are wonderful.
So in your packet, you will find an executive summary on the RFP results for 250 touchscreen Chromebooks. These are to replace the existing Chromebooks for our kindergarten classes. Those Chromebooks are coming up on 5 years, and as you can imagine, 5 years worth of kindergarten. We've gotten our money's worth on those things. So this is to replace them. We put an RFP out on September 30th. It was due on October 24th. Been actually really happy with the amount of bids we've been getting on the technology RFPs we put out there. We had 18 vendors bid. And I'm recommending we go with the lowest bid, which was a company called Archangel. They're located in Miami Beach, actually. If you guys would like me to visit them in person and make sure, I'd be willing to do so. But otherwise, I guess I'm just looking for permission to purchase those through that company and certainly happy
Do you
to
need a
answer any
chaperone for
questions.
that?
Absolutely. It's to save you maybe
Do you
a
know
couple.
what the overall price was?
Yeah, it's in the sheet
It's right
there.
there,
It was
67,000.
Like per device.
290.
290.
The total.
For 250.
It's a combination, you'll see there per unit and then per license. Per unit is per Chromebook.
There's a one-time charge for the license, it's a Chrome OS license to put it into our Google Administrative Portal per device. And that's something we just have to get.
My bad, I thought that chart was for something else. All right, any questions? All right, someone wanna make a motion for this?
So that we say yes to the.
So your motion is that you're going to motion to award Archangel a contract
As long
for
as you come
250
with me.
touchscreen Chromebooks.
And we should all go.
Yep.
That's it.
All right. Do you have a second? Second by Alyssa. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed and abstained. All right, thank you very
Thank
much.
Quick question, what do you do with those old Chromebooks?
Yes.
Good question. They really don't have much value. We will certainly go through them and clean them up, and ones that are still in good working order but we could use, we will distribute appropriately where we can.
Could you also consider that Timberlane Middle School, technology, the club that
Oh,
like
the club, yeah.
repurposes things and gets.
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly look at those and, if there's some broken items on there that we can fix.
Yes.
Absolutely. The problem with Chromebooks, Google about a few years ago determined that their licenses to work with our administrative portal would only work for 6 years. So it's their sneaky way of getting rid of older equipment, and schools were using them Chromebooks for 8, 9, 10 years, and now we can't do that anymore because they'll stop working after 6. So we really have to replace them in terms of using them within the school every 6 years because of that. But certainly we can find other uses for them. Like there's time clock stations
Tinker with, take apart.
to tinker with, for them to absolutely to do that.
Tinker. I'm a tinkerer.
Thank you.
Get you one if you want. Thank you.
All right, next up, we have some policies up for first read. Does Shauna or Sandy wanna speak to them?
Sure. So we're looking to get a first read approved from the board on EBCA, which is Crisis Prevention and Emergency Response Plans. Just to go through the process that policy took, we looked at it, we looked at some semantics within the language. We reached out to folks in the district for their feedback related to semantics and language that was used, and in consideration all of that, this is the proposed policy that we're moving towards you guys for a first read. In addition to that, we have GBE, which is staff conduct. And this is a policy that TRSC does not have, but it is one that is referenced in the recently adopted ACAA. How did I do? Did I get it?
That was awesome.
It feels like a lifetime ago that we had that meeting.
So wait, you just said that this was recently adopted in ACAA?
So ACAA is one of the mix of the Title IX and some of that.
Okay.
So we
it's
had to,
part. Okay.
yes, and
But
so
we
this
also
is,
need a separate.
yes, correct.
Alright.
So this is in the umbrella of that.
Mark, did you have a question?
No, I was just impressed.
No, alright. Any questions on these two policies?
As you should be.
Alright, someone wanna make a motion to adopt, or not to accept for first read policy EBCA and GBEB?
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Mark, do I have a second? Motion seconded by Alyssa, she beat you. Any other discussion?
Is there any feedback you need us to bring back to policy?
It's lovely.
Thank you. Maybe we can do adoption then, I'm just saying. If nobody has any feedback for us to go back to policy with.
Jack, go ahead.
Why not just do the second read? If no one on the board has an issue, then why does it have to
I
go
would
back
like
to a
more time
second
to
read?
read it, thank you.
You want more time to read it?
Okay, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure.
Nope, that's fine.
So if you can let me know, because we're just gonna move it back.
That's fine.
Cool.
Okay, cool.
Alright, motion's been made and seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed and abstained. Alright, cool. Next, warrant article information. Justin, did you have anything?
Yep, so you've got the warrants there, including the citizen petitions that we received, still in the same order as they were. The update that I have for you is in regard to the tax cap warrant article. What I am learning is that is going to necessitate and require the board to hold 4 public sessions. Those public sessions will be need to held geographically in each town, and they will need to be held between January 6th and February 6th. So I'm letting you know that now, so you can start checking your schedules. We will need a quorum at the board for each of those 4 town meetings. Again, they will be special meetings and they will be school board meetings. Please expect some future communication from Kelly Salovich. We're going to be trying to coordinate those calendars and get those dates and facilities and events set up well in advance of the December holiday, so we all understand what's going to be happening there. Our initial plan is to use the 2 school board meeting dates that are already on our calendar, and then we will find 2 other dates that we can meet out in the community. So we'll do Plastows here on one of those dates. Our goal is to try to meet at 6 o'clock for the public hearing, then get into the regular business of the school board meeting. The other school board meeting date in January, the later January, we'll try to head over to Atkinson, and then we'll try to get up into Danville and the Sandown in between those in a public setting to hold those public hearings.
Okay, and this is the only warrant article that we have to do this.
Just the tax cap one?
It is the only warrant article that we have to do it with right now, and those public hearings in each of the 4 towns are specific only to the tax cap warrant article. Different than our regional district public hearing, which is the entire budget and all warrant articles.
2 questions.
Yeah, go Jack.
First one is, will the attorney be in each one of these meetings?
It's something I will discuss with the chair and vice chair.
Okay, number 2, is the moderator from the town, or does the Plastow moderator from the district? The district has its own moderator, right?
Correct, we do.
So the moderator would go to each one of those towns as well, correct?
I don't know that answer yet, but we're looking into all the logistical.
That was a good question, I thought.
It's a great question.
Right? Makes
but
I'm
yes.
paying attention.
We're looking into all like the requirements and the people that need to be there, including the posting requirements for each of those meetings as well.
Yep, and this only pertains to the 2.5% tax cap article that was proposed by Sean O'Neill.
Correct.
So.
Right, again.
No, so the 2 that we're gonna piggyback on the school board meetings, that we'll have a regular school board meeting afterwards, but then the other 2, it'll just be for the hearings, right? There's really no other reason for us to have any other business afterwards, correct?
No,
Okay.
there's not. And the public hearing will be separate from your regularly scheduled board meeting. Those are 2 separate events.
So the 5th and the 19th, those 2 school board meetings, one of them will be here in Plastow, the 19th will be somewhere else.
So the 5th, we're also.
Yeah.
We'll work it out.
Okay, so the 5th has to be here and we'll be at the PAC already, right?
Let us work on the organization of the calendar.
That's December 5th.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Let us work on the organization of the calendar. We'll get something really clear out to you about availability and we'll be able to publish dates from there.
Okay, all right. Besides the tax cap, is there anything else on Article 10, the lease purchase agreement that was proposed by Val Freeman, or the fund balance retention by petition by John Downing?
No new information at this time for either of those, but to remind this board that the legal counsel of the district will be in attendance at the joint meeting with BudCom and will be reading and presenting a legal opinion on both the lease purchase agreement warrant article and the tax cap warrant article.
Okay. Any comments, questions? It's just informational. And again, this will be a continued running list. So keep your calendars light for January through February. All right, administrator's report.
I'm going to defer to Dr. Martin and Sandy first, and then
Sounds good.
I will close.
Well, thank you, Superintendent Krieger. First, a feel-good story. The flag outside the SAU was a little tattered, and our friend Maria has a friend who's a veteran who drives by here often and dropped off a flag in the backseat of her car that was gently used to offer to us to fly in front of the SAU, which to me, and I have a big soft spot for, I'm a patriot at heart. It's just a beautiful thing, and so if Maria thinks that he is willing if she's willing to give me his name, we're going to write a letter of thanks from everyone here at the SAU for such a generous donation and a thoughtful donation as well. And I'm a little embarrassed that I let it get by me.
I just wanted to make a quick comment that I know in Danville, an Eagle Scout actually created a retirement for flags. And so if you're looking to
Properly
have that-
dispose of.
Yes, properly dispose of that old flag. I know Danville would be happy to house that.
Very
service.
good, thank you. Another good story, Mr. Henderson and his team, they're creating a public Wi-Fi spot for our schools for after hours when there are guests in the building, so I think that's a really, that was a nice community service activity. I had a chance to actually see our fields being put to bed this past week, which was a really interesting experience with these enormous tractors, big farm tractors coming in to do the multiple aeration and multiple seeding, and then sanding, which is really interesting to me as well. That's why you couldn't park at the SAU the other day, because all that sand was out there. All the fall cleanup is done on all of our campuses. The fields are officially gone to sleep for the winter season. It is a very important thing to our grounds folks. And as an FYI from Al, December 2nd, we might have a little flurries and some potentially some ice. So he's already putting a plow and sand around one of the pickups, which is I love it. He's going to be my weather
ski
guy.
season.
More feel good. Several staff here at the SAU today served turkey dinners in our schools. They all came, not all, several of them came in with their turkey hats. And oh yeah, the kids are gonna love it. The kids are gonna love it as they all walk around the building making their turkey wings flap here. I think the adults liked it more than the kids did, but that was just great to see the SAU folks engaged on the school level in such a wonderful holiday tradition. On a more work-oriented note, I'm now attending the weekly maintenance staff work order sessions that Sarah Vare organizes, and making some direct connections with all of our maintenance team to make sure they know that we're here to support them, and to make sure that I know what's going on with the work orders in the district. That's going very well at this point in time. Don't get any ideas. No, I do not want to be the facilities director. But right now, this works. And I'm also doing some research through some other networking on how we can, other ways to post this facilities director position, and even potentially an enhancement for an HVAC advertisement that that I will talk more with you about once I have Mr. Krieger's permission. Submitted an RFP for water services with the help of Mrs. Salovich, and we're waiting for that on November 6th. Where else am I here? Finally, excuse me for delaying here. Finally, I look forward to being able to be better about reporting back to you in the administrator's report with more highlights from the other departments that I supervise: special education, student services, performing arts, technology, and athletics, as well as transportation. Final comments, transportation, we have instructed the bus company that Plastow is not to be backed up until further notice. And unless there's some major health breakout among first student drivers, we're hoping that is followed through with for an extended period of time. We continue to work on those issues.
Personally, I want to thank you for that.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Yeah, the bus backup, especially 104,
Yes,
definitely taken a toll on some of the families.
Yes, it
for
has.
sure.
And I've talked to some very kind and patient people who called and just really we're looking for a solution.
Yeah.
A couple other drivers are in the pipeline, hopefully in the next few weeks, but then we have people who get sick.
Yep.
It's just not an easy thing.
And then the other day, the backup bus broke down, so then a third bus had to come for bus 104, so.
It just doesn't, you can't make it up.
Yeah, yeah.
But I will say, especially for Pollard, because this is really Plastow, what it's been affecting, the administrators have done a really good job with communicating to families. I know, especially like with Pollard, that we've been getting text messages and also the phone calls saying, hey, this is happening. We'll call you, text you when the bus leaves. So that's very greatly appreciated.
I'll pass that on. And you have to realize that those administrators in some cases are getting text messages or phone calls from the bus company at 4:00 in the morning.
Yep.
So, really, everybody's pitching in as much as they can, but I will pass that on.
Yeah, Bri?
Quick question on the Wi-Fi that you're
Yeah.
supplying, which I think is a great and awesome community kind of format, but will it reach out into the parking lot?
So I can't answer that question. We did talk a little bit about, and you, Justin and Sandy might remember from the principals and directors meeting. Ken is really good about making sure that there are protections. I remember some conversation about, we didn't want, somebody to pull up a bus in the parking lot and take Wi-Fi from us. That's a COVID, I'm having a COVID memory. But I will try to get more explicit information from Mr. Henderson on that.
Thank you, Chris.
Pleasure.
I just have a few items, and I want to thank our student representative who did a great job of talking about some of them already. So just wanted to recognize that just last week we celebrated Veterans Day, which is a day off of school. But just wanted to acknowledge some of the educational pieces and service opportunities that are happening connected to Veterans Day across some of our schools. So when we have a day that's celebrated that way, our schools always make a concerted effort to make sure that we are recognizing the purpose of the day and providing opportunities for students to learn about why we are pausing our school year to take a break and recognize, in this case, it was our veterans. So just wanted to highlight some of the different activities that happened across a handful of our schools last week. So if you have driven down Greeno Road, you may have seen in front of the middle school the flag display. So our middle school students got together. I believe it was sixth grade, but I did not confirm that. They got together and they had flags that were donated by the American Legion, posts 4 and 34, and put together a flag display that thanked veterans that is best viewed from a drone, but it is still there. And so we want to thank the American Legion for their donation and recognize those students and staff who worked on that. Additionally, at the high school, I know we heard a little bit about the Veterans Day breakfast. So this is a longstanding tradition that the Historical Honor Society, Rho Kappa, has been running for many, many years. And it's a really special day. So Rho Kappa, which is primarily composed of juniors and seniors, they host a light breakfast in the high school library. And they are joined by veterans who reside in our Timberlane communities. And those individuals come, they share food with the students, they talk about experiences and memories of service and what it was like, what they went through as service members. And then following that, that's in the morning, but during blocks 2, 3, and 4 at the high school, we had a speaker, a Veterans Day speaker, attend social studies classes to further expand some of those experiences and to make those connections. And then lastly, we heard about the cereal drive, but in Danville, the school, our students collected through student council 435 boxes of cereal that were donated to the Liberty House, which is in Manchester, which provides transitional housing for veterans who are in need of shelter. So just some really great educational opportunities that are happening that are connecting us to the community, and just wanted to really recognize that while it is a day off from school, it's a day that we're trying to really elevate in importance for our students so they can make that connection as to why they're home on that day. So that's it.
Great, thank you for sharing that. I have 5 things, and then I want to get to the last part of it. I want to reopen that discussion that you had 2 weeks ago at the board meeting specific to CIP, but let me move through 5 things before that engagement. The first thing I wanted, and this is a reminder for folks, is that the New Hampshire School Funding Fairness Project, again, will be here in Timberlane on December 5th. There's some social media advertisements out there already. That will be followed by a letter from myself to the entire community, including the Board of Selectmen, introducing that evening, also giving that same registration link. And again, you do not need to register to attend, but it's helpful for the organization that's putting this on that they've got a little bit of a head count if you're so inclined. In that same communication will be a way also for the community to submit questions prior, that we provided the project beforehand so they can prepare to answer those. There'll also certainly be an opportunity for live questioning during that session. Again, that direct engagement will be with the New Hampshire Fair Funding Project. You as a school board member will also certainly be able to engage in any of that question and answer session as well. You can plan on about a 45-minute presentation by the project, and then that will be followed by the Q&A session, which I'm led to believe could be just as long or longer than the presentation itself, depending upon the participation we get from our community. See you there December 5th at the PAC.
I'm sorry.
Yes,
to interrupt.
please.
Can you just clarify, because there was some misleading information I saw on social media.
Get
that
out of here.
The Department of Education will not be attending that presentation, correct?
I have not had any conversations or communication with the Department of Education over this. This is sponsored by the New Hampshire Fair Funding Project.
Thank you.
Good clarification.
All right. Second thing is we've talked about BudCom a little bit here tonight. Wanted to let the board know that our next budget committee is this Monday, the 25th. We will be presenting the special education budget at that meeting, and I'm going to preview it for you now. Is that number is coming in $500,000 below what the voted budget was last year, and I can't point out enough to you with regard to special education. That is a feat, and we have worked really hard and really diligently with Kelly Brooks to get to that space. That's despite increasing costs for the private tuition and for the transportation lines, which makes up a great bulk of it. But we're proud of that work, and we'll present it in detail on the 25th. Third, moving through things is the joint meeting. Again, is December 16th. You'll have that legal opinion. We covered that earlier. And I do want to highlight something that we're going to do on December 12th at 9:30 a.m. in Concord. Myself and a few administrators in the district and 3 to 4 families that are in our NECC programming. Again, it's a special education categorical programming for students on the autism spectrum. We are going to be attending the State Board of Education meeting in Concord, and we are going to be highlighting the attributes of that program that we sponsor here in-house for our students and families. We're not only doing it because we believe in the program, about how it's cost effective and keeps kids in their communities, but we have also been recently informed by the Commissioner of Education that the special education aid, or what was formerly known as CAT aid, is going to be significantly depleted this year, and districts can expect less for the special education reimbursement funding than they had initially intended. Let me give you a picture of what this looks like. Special education aid really allows the state, or requires the state, to pay 80% of the cost of a special education student. That is 3.5 times over the cost per pupil. So let me break that down for you. 3.5 times the cost per pupil is generally $70,000. So if a student's costing that much, the district is responsible for that $70,000 cost. If that student costs $100,000, there's a $30,000 differential between 100 and 70. The state is required to pay 80% of that number. They are not going to reach that threshold this year, which means that it will be pushed back potentially to the taxpayer. This is a great moment for Timberlane to celebrate 2 programs we have that are in direct opposition to that funding mechanism, and also to raise awareness of the State Board of Education to encourage them to increase that budget line that they have not increased since fiscal year of 21, despite the number of special education students in the state increasing and the cost for those services increasing. So we really feel like we can have a state level conversation and use what's happening in Timberlane to further a cause that really needs to change in terms of that funding mechanism.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Why has the number of special needs students increased in the state if I think our student population is decreasing? Do I have that? Is that a fair question?
It's a fair question. I don't think it has one answer. I think you could arrive at a multitude of answers for that. Just off the top of the head, Jack, the kids' needs are maybe different. There is also evaluation processes become tighter, and those selection processes for identification of districts. Yep. We learn more. Maybe those are errors that districts are making in terms of the identification process to begin with. Maybe they don't have the early childhood supports that would not warrant the special education referral 3-4 years down the road. Lots of factors go into that. I think the signal is our kids are in need of service.
Right, okay, thank you.
Sorry, could you remind me of the date and time and location?
Sure, we'll be December 12th. The State Board of Education, I believe, convenes at 9:30 a.m. and we are the district spotlight on the agenda that day.
Nice.
I hope that we will be presenting fairly early. And again, right now, we've got 3 Timberlane families that are gonna make that drive with us and bring their students and speak to the experience. One of the families that was here 2 weeks ago with you.
Nice. Very good.
Very special, Emily.
If you are interested in attending any webinars from the New Hampshire School Boards Association, there are 2 upcoming ones that may be of interest. One is on December 4th is the changes of the adequacy formula. So if you want to kind of be a policy wonk geek and get into the weeds about how that number is created, please reach to me or Kelly. We'll be able to share that link with you. And on December 18th is the legislative preview for 25. We do, I think, a really good job keeping up with that on the admin side, but also available for board members just to kind of preview what's on the legislative calendar for the upcoming year. Any comments or questions on those kind of logistical pieces? Last board meeting, I opened up a conversation in the admin report specific to CIP, and I was really looking for some direction. Both Jack and I are gonna be in front of the budget committee soon, and we're gonna be making a recommended budgetary number for that. Tonight, I can share with you that the CIP committee, the subcommittee of the board, has identified 4 projects that they would like to move into next year's budget. And these are the beginning of renovation of the bathrooms at the high school, and they have tagged $500,000 to support that beginning project. The main campus exterior metal fencing to replace or think of a different option there. That is relegated at $200,000 in the CIP. The Atkinson Belfry is the 3rd project that is added to that list. That is at $641,000. And I'm gonna come back to that in one quick second. And the last thing that was added very recently was the roof over at Danville, and that is listed at $550,000 of work. The total for those 4 projects is $1,891,000. For your reference point, the current budget in that CIP line is $1,892,000. So pretty close. I would be remiss if I didn't visit the Belfry right now and to inform the board that we were informed that unfortunately we did not qualify for the grant from LCHIP. It should not come as a total surprise, as schools are very seldomly selected or in that criteria process. So that ship has sailed. What has opened for us, which is highly unusual for this organization, is that they have come into some degree of funding. And we will know in January, Dr. Martin?
Yes.
Whether $150,000 will be and could be available to be earmarked to Timberlane for this project. So it's not all lost, but they're really trying to work hard and do some unique things on their end to support our needs here. Jack?
Question. So if we find, when's deliberative session? What's the date of deliberative session?
February 6th.
Okay, so we'll know about that grant money prior to deliberative session. Kind of understand
That's
where
our
I'm going with this,
expectation.
guys.
Question. The Belfry, that's due to the Articles of Agreement, correct?
It is.
Is that a need or a want? I know we're obligated to do it by the Articles of Agreement, but is that something that we have to do this year or coming up?
I would ask the board to think about the separation between the budget committee and the school board. In the end, the board has the determination of what projects get done and at what dollar figure. These are recommendations by the CIP committee to you. You can accept them or reject them. So I don't know if the conversation is about value of project here right now, or if it's about the total bottom line, and then allow you guys as a board next year to make decisions about how you're gonna use that bottom line to do the most priority work here in the district.
Mark,
I'll let Jack go first.
Okay, Jack.
So like you just alluded to, Justin, that's a bottom line. You can, and as I've said many times, something comes up and that rearranges how we manage that pool of funds. The Belfry, to me, is more of a need than a want because of, we were told by the architect and I think in the facilities meeting that those were issues of, those were structural issues.
Structural
Correct.
issues.
Okay.
So if it was cosmetic or dressing up a field, that, or the football lights, it's more of a want than a need. And just for clarification's sake, Katie, you brought up the football lights. We changed our minds on that at our last meeting. Because I think there was some confusion as to what the CIP had recommended, to be fair, okay? So that's why we turned that around, because this is about doing what has to be done, what needs to be done. The bathrooms, obviously, a lot of pressure to get those done for a whole host of different reasons. Those things directly affect the students. And, you know, when we were spending money on the pack wall, not that that didn't need to be done, it did. I always thought in the back of my head, how is that affecting students? Oh, I thought I got someone mad.
No.
Not new. So I think that's a worthy cause. We're looking at options just to, on the CIP, some of that fencing potentially could be replaced with guardrails, which we're looking at which one is fiscally the more sound approach to do that. So in some of the places where we have fence, I was sitting in the parking lot and said, you know what? We have to weed whack around the fence. We've got to plow around the fence. You've got to be delicate while you do it. Whereas if you put in a guardrail, it allows our employees to become more efficient and more cost effective in managing those areas. I think at the clip we're going at, we're starting to get progress done. We're getting things done around campus. I don't want to pay for the same thing twice. I don't want to have to go back and say, God, I wish we had done this, and I mean, cost of fencing will go up. The cost of installing those bathrooms will go up. So when we look at expending money, is this a fiscally sound thing to do? Because I know it's in everyone's mind, right? Everyone's struggling. What is the impact of every $500,000 on the tax rate divided up amongst 4 towns? I think it's like $1 a year. It's not even, or $2 depending on the town you live in. It's not $1 per thousand, it's $1 a year. So let's get this stuff done while we can, so it doesn't cost the taxpayers more in the future.
Kim?
The Belfry, wasn't it, aren't we moving into a phase 2 situation? There has already been work done.
Yes.
Did that work make it more structurally sound so that we can pass on the $600,000 for now and then come back to it?
If I may, that was discussed a lot in facilities. So the short answer is yes. The structural concerns and the potential safety concerns have largely been addressed, which is not to say the next phase is, just, putting lipstick on it. It absolutely isn't. It's still, there are some issues structurally that need to be addressed, as well as, just for visual appeal and maintaining our obligation to the town of Atkinson. But at this stage, it's not a safety concern.
And before those, so the CIP projects come to the board individually to be signed off on before they're done? Or does it come as like a package?
We would bring you a project list. Typically, what the board has done is to approve that project list so the administrators can start moving on those projects, about getting the equipment, the contracts in place, putting out the RFP, all that process. My point with Katie was like, this group is the deciding factor of what gets done and what gets spent. I'm looking for direction as we craft this year's proposed budget for the next fiscal year about what you want that pot to look like, to draw on, to prioritize some of the work that Jack has alluded to here.
I certainly wouldn't take away any of the hard work that the CIP committee has done, because I know what it means to be on a committee and pore over all the information. So, but there are a few things that I still am left to consider, I think.
Hold on.
Just to be clear, there's check and balances there too with the facilities committee. They in some cases, the two overlap and complement each other in a lot of ways. So I don't want to take anything away from from the, I mean, we talked about great length in the facilities committee as well.
Yeah. Is this something, when are you looking for guidance?
Tonight.
Right now?
Well, to be fair, the seed was planted 2 weeks ago.
No, I know, yeah.
Shauna, in regards to the fence, forgive me if I missed it, is there anything related to safety as to why they want to replace it, or can we just take it down?
I think we
just
had
be removed?
pictures, I was a big fan of pictures. There's tons of pictures, there's tons of places where it's completely rusted out. Even in front of the stadium, you're leaning on one of the crossbars and the thing comes undone. There are areas where the linked fence comes together, that's bowed out, and that just got kids all, I mean.
But what's the purpose of the fence?
The purpose of the fence, well, that's why we're looking at the guardrail in some places, because the snow plows destroy the fence.
But again, is it something that it's due to, we need the fence because it's for student safety, or is it there for cosmetic, or is it there just to like block something? Like, what's it for? Like, is it worth replacing?
The purpose of those boundary fences are to control pedestrian traffic. And what is accessible to the fields and our students and staff, and in what kind of quickly manner. Can you climb a fence? Yes. Can you go around it? Yes. If it's not there, you can just get a direct pathway. So that is the main purpose of that piece.
And the one line is so that the parking, when the cars park, they don't go down the hill into the baseball field.
It's definitely a crowd management piece, and when you have things that are people are paying for to go in, if you have something like that, this was a hurdle. Plus, with so many kids there, especially on a football night, when you have hundreds of kids who use that side of the hill as a place to hang out, you don't want to have not just the police, but staff members have to then also be watching the fields. It just becomes overwhelming in terms of a risk.
Is that what you were asking?
Nope. Can I clarify my question? Sorry for the confusion. What I'm asking is, I understand why we have a fence in regards to safety. Forgive me, let me try this one more time. What I'm asking is the fence that is up now a liability in any way to the safety of the people that are around it? In other words, like, is it gonna fall over? Is it not doing its job? I understand it's bending, it's rusted, it's bowing. And if not, then did the CIP committee consider just replacing not the whole area, but just a section of the area where those considerations of rust and bowing, which could lead to potential liability, be replaced only to reduce some of the cost?
So I sit on CIP with Jack, and so again, we had photos, which I'm sure could be shared if
I've seen
we need to, from Dr. Martin. They had, when Jack says bowing, he means like concave, and then the top is now jutted straight out eye level at students. When we say rusting, so eroded that the hinges actually fell off, and we are shimmying them together with inappropriate tools. When we say things needed to be maybe just sections of it, it's multiple sections of them. And so the thought was, this is our kind of amount we're willing to kind of give to it, but when we set that RFP, let's chunk it out and see how much we're going to.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to phasing it in.
So you need action on whether or not we keep it at 1,892,000.
No, I don't, I really don't, I don't think I need a vote or an action. I need some consensus of the board, and if you wanna do that through a vote, that's great. But again, the administration brings the budget to BudCom, and I'm looking to work in partnership with you to do that. And I wanna be sure that we're moving in the same direction
And
together.
I can't stress enough, there hasn't been a year that I've been involved here, or for that matter, that I haven't been involved here, where some other anomaly happens around the district, septic, a boiler at Sandown. Something happens where that money is all of a sudden gonna be diverted. So you look at what we have, and they're all worthy causes, but my guess is we probably won't do all of them because something else is gonna come up.
And my my understanding too is it's $1,000 difference between what was in the budget and what is being proposed, correct?
How much?
189,
1 and 1892.
It's right now it's $1,000 lower than what the current fiscal year budget is. I want to have that a word of caution that those numbers are as not as preliminary as you can get, but they're not contracts, right? They're just sections of money that we'll go out and explore what we're gonna be able to do.
I'd like to just say one more thing, the belfry. I'm sorry. I understand it's part of our articles of agreement to take care of each other. And I think it's beautiful and I want that thing fixed. But to put $600,000 into something that is potentially structurally sound right now, it doesn't feel like something that I would support.
John?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask to get an overview of what would be done with that $600,000 to the Belfry. The short story.
Yeah, short story we asked and there are a lot of things that ultimately will be done to bring it back up to spec. So it's a difficult thing. They weren't able to answer directly because it's subcontracted through a specialist who deals specifically with historic buildings, which we must do because this is one. A lot of it depends on the cost of materials when we do end up doing it. So the intent was to address those issues that would become structurally questionable in the short term rather than in the intermediate term first. And they just pretty much, it depends how much money you give us up front, that determines how much we can do. So I can't tell you how many levels of staging or how many lineal feet they'll be addressing. I don't have that info.
Do you see that as something that should be done once altogether, or something that can be done in stages also?
Yeah, so we did ask that question, and we asked that question in conjunction with all the other work that they'll be doing in Atkinson, a lot of the HVAC that needs to be done. And so quite honestly, there would be the potential of additional savings from having everything done at once. However, in the scheme of things, it would be negligible, especially when there are other needs, and our budget is rather finite, and we're making a concerted effort to keep it as tight as possible this year.
Jack.
So let me make this recommendation. Run for another 150,000 or 850,000 from the LCHIP grant, correct? We'll know that in January. Many times we've gone right before deliberative session and adjusted a number or even amended it on the floor. So if you had 150,000 for that project, you could then adjust the budget down 150,000 at deliberative. So maybe that's a better approach and maybe get a more definitive answer from the subcontractor that's doing that work as to how much of that may be facade work or how much of that would be structural, because I do remember during the facilities meeting that they did talk about deterioration of product, and that concerns me from a safety standpoint for something, and I can't speak to what that is, but I think maybe we need to have that company come in and give us a definitive explanation as to work that would be done and where that 150 would fit in the scope of that, because if we can reduce it by 150,000, that's a positive thing, right?
So I think in this discussion, there might be two considerations, whether or not sounds like maybe don't do the belfry this year and take that money out of the budget, or two, put something else in its place. So maybe it would be beneficial for all board members to see the entire CIP list and see what wasn't chosen instead of that belfry and why CIP prioritized it and wanted it done this year.
Could I just make a little amendment to my statement? If it's a matter of safety, obviously I want that to be on the priority list. So I think what I'm very unclear about right now is if it is in fact a safety issue for the belfry, then 100% I think that should be at the very top of our list. But if it's not a matter of student safety and it's a matter of preserving something historical right now, in this world we live in right now, I think that should be put at the very bottom of the current CIP list, not like the bottom of all the CIP lists, but the one that you're looking to
The
do
bottom
right
of
now.
the recommended list that came out of the
Correct.
committee.
Yes. That makes sense. Mark and then Jen.
Which could also provide us flexibility for those one-offs that do potentially happen at the last minute. And if they don't, great, fulfill our obligations in a financially responsible way. It's not taking care of all of it, but it's certainly a good chunk.
I just wanna reiterate that I support doing the work. I sat in CIP and I support the budget that was listed.
Jack?
So maybe we can do this, maybe we can have that contractor or EEI come in and explain to us at the next meeting precisely what that work is, what the consequence of if we didn't do that would be, if there are any safety concerns. I mean, cause you could almost make this argument for every single thing on that list.
Right, and maybe,
Right.
Jack, since next meeting is so packed, jam-packed, maybe you could come back with that information instead of having a presentation.
Do you trust me that
You-
much?
Well, I certainly I do, and
I'll be with you, Jack.
like I said, the committee work is,
No, that's fine.
committee
I'll
work
get a
has been
detailed.
done and the
I'm bringing
recommendation-
a number to the budget committee Monday.
So what I'm hearing from the group is we wanna keep the CIP line where it is
Yes.
what I'm hearing.
Yes, the.
Okay.
Does that have to be a motion?
No.
Appreciate you hearing the discussion, sharing your thoughts, and providing direction.
And I can't thank you for enough for asking.
I hate the CIP line. Anything else, sir?
No.
All right, personnel report, I don't believe we have anything, we just have a regular vacancy report, anything much change with it?
Just continuing to say that it is the smallest it has been on record in quite some time.
Cool. Committee reports, I'm gonna start with Paul.
I did not attend the facilities meeting, so.
Cool.
I'm good.
All right, Alyssa,
Due to being sick, I did not attend anything recently.
appreciate you not spreading your germs.
You're welcome.
Bree?
I am on strategic plan and our next meeting is January 16th, 5:30 here. And I'm on CIP and we finalize some numbers for you guys.
What were those numbers again?
Curriculum assessment will be Tuesday the 3rd, and I'll let you do our negotiating update, and that's it. That's all I have.
John?
Policy committee is scheduled to meet on Thursday, December 5th. There's also a conflict with the early childhood committee, as two of us that are on policy are also on early childhood, which is also supposed to be meeting at the same time, so we'll take the semantics of that offline, and that's all I have.
Yeah.
Mark?
Facilities met, we worked through a list finalizing what we want in phase 3. A lot of work is going to be done at Atkinson Academy. An awful lot of work. We're also able to scratch a few things off of that list. Shouldn't say scratch, we're actually pushing them down the line. For example, the PAC roof, which is at its end of life expectancy, but there's not water on the floor yet, maybe because we haven't had rain, but it's not broken yet, even though it's, not good. So we are pushing that back hopefully for a year. In a perfect world, we'd be fixing it before it was broken, but we're not in that perfect world yet. And the negotiating team met our sub-conference here for 5 hours early this week. And then this evening, before anybody got here, we negotiated with the 2 unions. We're making some forward progress.
Nice. Budget committee, I believe Monday will be the last presentations for the rest of the budgets, correct?
Monday will be special education and CIP, and then the next meeting will be personnel.
Okay.
And that will also be with the meeting, we have a final proposed budget number, December 12th.
Okay. And then safety committee will be meeting sometime in December, so we'll be bringing some stuff here for that. Other than that, that's all I have. Dawn?
Nothing to add, thanks.
Sweet. Jack?
Justin pretty much covered the CIP stuff, or we all did.
Good conversation.
And Mark did the facility, so nothing.
Nice. Is there any other business at this time?
I just wanna say thank you to Justin for bringing the family shares and the staff and student and family shares. Every week or every meeting, they're great, but today was like the yin and yang of what our district is, and those little kids, and we talked about that science, mystery science in curriculum assessment a lot, and what is it, Sandy, phenomenon based. Phenomenon based, so that it was exciting to talk about, so, but to see it here was completely different. So that was so exciting, but then to listen to the Lombard family, and it was very emotional, and it just, the work we do is great, and I'm very, very proud of the work we've done so far, but we have a lot more to do, and that was a great realization. But the staff and student and family shares is a big deal, and I really appreciate that. And I'm glad that we start every meeting with that, so I just wanted to say that.
Thanks for the feedback.
I just did wanna, again, thank RoCAPA for what they do every year, to honor veterans. But one of the things that I didn't hear, but every year I hear about is how much the veterans are impressed with the students and what they do to make them feel important, what the veterans feel honored, because the students really show interest and have some knowledge of what's going on and what's gone on. And they walk away with a better feeling about the youth today, as a result.
Any other business? Do we have any other delegates or individuals? All right. We will be going into a brief non-public. We will not be back other than just to seal the minutes. Shauna?
We make a motion to go into non-public under 91-A:3 subparagraph C.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second. Second by Kim. Can I get a roll call vote?
Yes, Jeff.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
And Kim.
That's 3.
Seriously.
Yes.
Well, now I can't.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening.